Our next speaker, Sowmya Subramanian, Engineering Director at YouTube. A little bit about Sowmya before we start. Just a few words. Sowmya joined Google in 2006, and since then some of her accomplishments include development, launch, and management of YouTube Music app and YouTube Music key subscription services, and leading the development of and launching YouTube Kids. Anyone is familiar with YouTube Kids? Yeah. Sowmya also plays an active role with women in engineering at Google and is currently working on initiatives to change the perception of women in the media. Born in Chennai, India, Sowmya spent much of her childhood in Lagos, Nigeria, and is fluent in 4 languages. She earned a bachelor's in computer science at Mount Holyoke College, Massachusetts, on a full scholarship, and master's in computer science at the University of Wisconsin Medicine on a fellowship. So, without further ado, Sowmya.
Hi everyone. Hi. Thank you for being here. It's a Friday evening of a long weekend, so I was just telling some folks that it's impressive how many people are here and so engaged. So it's great to see this. So a little bit before I get started, more than like what the bio read was, but who I am. So I was talking to someone earlier about a startup that she's doing around like dance and fitness. So I wanted to say, it's so nice to see that there's many different aspects are being explored in these companies. I myself find that fascinating because I'm a classical dancer myself, and also I do a lot of like biking, so that's kind of an interesting app. So a few things about kind of my journey before I get into the topic for today. I went to undergrad to an all-women's college, Mount Holyoke. Anyone from Mount Holyoke or the East Coast, Smith? No East Coast College graduates here? Yeah? No, okay. And it was an interesting choice at that time, and I don't think I realized the value of an all-women's college and education until after I graduated from there. It really, the liberal arts education, I think really helps her think in a multi-dimensional way than traditional just engineering-focused universities do. I definitely enjoyed my time at University of Wisconsin-Madison when I was specializing in database systems as well. At the same time, though, I think some of the foundational elements I learned in Mount Holyoke in terms of just connecting the dots across different disciplines and bringing it together. I feel like that is a skill that I use quite a bit in my day-to-day job, and sometimes a lot more than the pure technology side of things. What else can I say? In my undergrad, I was very much focused on artificial intelligence and robotics, and at that time, machine learning wasn't a big thing yet. And so everyone thought robotics wouldn't really take off. We built a robot using a trash can, and that's the little picture there. We called it Susan B, and we were trying to do like image recognition through it. I think that's a little bit about me. You can ask me more questions, but I'm just going to go on to the topic for today. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I'm personally passionate about, and I've been driving across Google. In terms of diversity in the context of engineering and product development. So a lot of times we hear about diversity largely about, balanced teams and how does the workforce come together. And for me, when I took on like a lot more active role with women in tech within the company, one of the things that stood out quite a bit was, in addition to the ratios and the numbers not being great, even in our product designs, there are so many times we unconsciously leave users out, which if we were to proactively address it, whether it's in our machine learning algorithms or the visual and user design of the products, you could have a lot more impact of growth. So that's what this is about. I'm going to start off with a favorite video of mine because I do work at YouTube. And let's see if the audio system works here.
Whoa, rewind. Chasing dreams since I was 14 with the 14 bustle. Revelation comes from the past, the people now sing a song and it goes like. And it goes like. What the fuck? You want to change the world? You're a ghost. You can do that. Here we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. Here we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us.
So I love starting with this video. It's a clip from one of the YouTube Rewind videos, if you're familiar with those, because it really captures the essence of YouTube. Anyone know what YouTube's original mission was when it started? YouTube? Dating? I know. Yes, it was broadcast yourself. And that simple mission has grown into, helped the platform grow into a global platform with global reach. We have over 1.5 billion users on the platform today. And over 80% of our views come from outside the United States. And it's also grown into an open and democratic platform where we get over 400 hours of videos uploaded every minute by creators all around the world, making YouTube the most diverse platform amongst all the media platforms that are there. So in the time it took me to say this one sentence, almost a day's worth of videos got uploaded to YouTube. So it's pretty amazing the amount and scale at which we are dealing with things. YouTube, unlike traditional media or television, has no gatekeepers. So anyone can have a voice and reach an audience. And while this is still very true about YouTube, a few years ago when I was looking at some of the usage data on YouTube, I realized that even on our platform, as we've grown, human kind of biases, unconscious biases have started to creep in. So on YouTube too, you see gender gaps, for instance, and other kinds of biases that you see in traditional media. How many of you are familiar with Gina Davis's study of Hollywood and gender representation in the Hollywood industry? Anyone? I see a few nods here, right? Like, so it's surprising to see even on YouTube we have those kind of gaps at times for being an open platform, democratic, with so much international content and audience coming together. And that insight drove me to kind of start a dialogue within YouTube and a pitch across Google. Our mission is to build products for all about diversity in the context of product design and how do unconscious biases play into product strategy and product thinking. So for instance, YouTube, we optimize for watch time, right? Like that's our North Star metric and we measure our success by that. What if, in addition to that, we became more intentional about some kind of demographic goal, such as like gender reach on the platform or ethnicity reach on the platform? That would then open up opportunities for us to deepen engagement with users and onboard more new users, thereby driving growth. And so for the first time within Google, we shifted our conversations, or not shifted, but expanded our conversations around diversity at Google, from diversity in the workplace, about hiring, to diversity being critical to defining our product strategy and our product growth strategies. So what is inclusive design? That's my topic for today, inclusive design, and how you can incorporate it at scale within your products. It's about engineering products for all your target users across all demographics. So broadening the demographic reach allows you to bring in more users into the funnel, thereby driving growth for your product. Inclusive design is not just about visual design or user experience. Like when I mention it, many people think of it as purely a UI thing. It's also about machine learning, about training data biases. It's about how you do testing of your product, what kind of sample biases are there, and when you land your product, what kind of PR and marketing and branding you put behind it. So let's look at a few examples of where we've seen inclusive design and how it has actually helped businesses grow and affect their revenue streams. And before I get there are different kinds of inclusive design. How many of you in your products are looking into accessibility, for instance, as a standard? Anyone at that stage yet? Yes, a few hands are going up. So accessibility work has become more of like a second nature thing in the industry these days. Here it's about saying, which target users of my group could I be doing more for? It could be gender-based. It could be about the developing versus the developed world, right? Like your product might work great when you've designed it for assuming you're going to have high connectivity, you're going to have a smartphone with unlimited space. But when you go to an emerging market or where there's connectivity issues, it may not be doing so well. And if they are within your target user group, from the get-go, you want to be thinking about how do you build your products and optimize them for that purpose. Am I making sense? Okay, good. So let's look at a few examples. How many of you know when airbags first came out, they caused a lot more injuries and death with women and children? Anyone know why? The size? Yeah, do you know how is the size? The force? Yeah, and how did they not catch it?
Didn't try.
Yes. Yeah, so the reason is when airbags first came out, they had been tested only with tall male crash test dummies. So in the labs, they performed really well, but in real life, female drivers tend to have a smaller build. So in accidents, they tend to have 47% higher chance of fatal injuries than men. So once the automobile industry recognized this, and then reactively incorporated women into their design, started using female crash test dummies, the safety of these airbags improved significantly. And they improved not just for women, but for anyone with a smaller build. So that's a great example of gender-based inclusive design. Now you can imagine if from the get-go, if they had thought about all those different dimensions, they would have landed the product even better from the first release of it, and they wouldn't have had to react to it. This is on a video.
My coworker Juan and I are sitting in front of an HP Media Smart computer. It's supposed to follow me as I move. I'm black. I think my blackness is interfering with the computer's ability to follow me.
So she moved this way, and the camera followed. And then he got into the screen and it was completely stable.
No face recognition anymore, buddy.
So to understand what's happening here, we need to go back to the 1950s when Kodak first came out, was dominating color photography and introduced the original Shirley color card, which has become a standard in photography these days. But there was one problem. It works better with lighter skin tones. So what that means is you often have exposure issues when you're taking multiracial photos. Now this became a big problem in the industry in the 1970s because chocolate makers and wood manufacturers were having a really hard time advertising their products because they weren't able to capture the different shades of browns in their products. Right? So when it started affecting advertising revenue, people really cared about solving for it. And also, of course, the media industry, the film industry was starting to become more diverse, so different skin colors were starting to be captured. And they all were dealing with this overexposure issue. Finally, in the 1990s, a group of engineers took an inclusive design approach and decided they'll bridge this problem, and they introduced multiracial color cards, which have improved things significantly, but they still have a slight light skin bias. And at Google, we've taken a proactive approach in the Google camera team and have tried to solve for that. So I'll roll a video on what the camera team has done.
Pictures tell stories. It doesn't really matter if it's a selfie or if it's a portrait that somebody is taking of another person. You are sharing in that human moment.
Let's take a picture, you two. 1, 2, 3. Oh, he's too dark.
This is where the discussion started.
Use my phone. It's got a better sensor.
Better sensor? What does that even mean? Color tuning is an extremely complicated process. When we look at images, what we try to do is figure out how much of a difference there is between, let's say, a reference image and the image that we actually are trying to quantify. We were running some tests on a product, and it was the proximity sensor we were testing. And we said, oh, it looks like it does 60 centimeters. And we looked at each other and go, what about white? The technology itself, as many people will say, is not racist. It's just that it wasn't tested properly to make sure that the designers weren't unconsciously biased. Hey, there's an entire world out there, and we want to make sure this works for everybody. I love the fact that we get to influence cameras, and we get to share those experiences of life and emotion. And to me, that is what imaging is about. It is a vehicle to express humanity.
See the picture, you two. 1, 2, 3.
Right, so this next example is not from the tech world. How many of you like Cheetos? Okay. Did you know when it first started out, there was only one flavor of Cheetos, the cheesy original flavor? Until a janitor who worked in that company started adding chili and lime to his packets of Cheetos because he was Latino and loved the flavor of chili and lime. And his friends and families liked it too, so he decided to pitch this idea of a new flavor to the CEO of the company, who actually listened to this janitor and decided to experiment with a new flavor. And it unlocked whole new opportunities for them. And people, when I tell them the story, ask me what happened to the janitor. Happy to say he is a senior executive at the company now, so it's a true rags to riches story. But more importantly, I think it's a great case of cultural inclusion. And for all of you who are CEOs and you're starting your company or growing your company, I think what the CEO did in terms of listening to the janitor and being open to exploring, I think is a really another important message here about how you look for growth opportunities and how you can tap into things, even when things are going really well within the product. So be opportunistic, strategically opportunistic if you can. This next example is near and dear to me because it was very much a part of it. A few years ago, we wanted to increase the engagement of YouTube with kids and families. So we brought kids into our UX lab to see how they use YouTube. So this is what we normally see in YouTube. Yeah? This is how kids saw it. Right? So they only cared about the content and nothing else on the screen. And that's when we realized that we have to pretty much reimagine YouTube from the perspective of kids and families to make it more engaging for them. And that's how the YouTube Kids app was born. So within the YouTube Kids app, we've done we really focused on providing for a safe, engaging, and enriching experience through a lot of visual and user interaction innovation, and also a lot of investment and improvements and innovation on our backend algorithms and classification systems to provide for this experience. And we've seen significantly more engagement and daily active users on the app for this content than on the main YouTube experience. This is again a great example of age-based inclusive design. And one of the things I'm trying to bring out here is, as you're developing your idea, think about not just your target users, but think about all the dimensions of the target user, because then it'll help you figure out how to round your products out to ensure you're getting to the right users that you're really going after. And you're not alienating or leaving somebody on the table accidentally. How many of you have used YouTube Kids? I saw some hands go up. So let me just play the original launch video for those of you who might not have seen what the app looks like.
Okay, so do you want to tell a story?
Sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Now everything is popping into my brain. Okay. Once upon a time, there was someone named Alex. 3 sisters. A bunny. 2 train. He got caught in a bubble, and then he was floating around. He went to France, and then he sees Dracula. And a few ghosts and Frankenstein, and then the robot came and ate the whole town. And everyone went like crazy. And then they had to destroy the robot. That was the only thing, so they put it on the sun, because since the sun was made of gas, it couldn't eat anything there. He got surprised. And then he jumped back and popped the bubble when he fell. The end. It's really weird.
How many of you use emojis when you're texting? Mostly everyone, right? Yeah, so 90% of the world's online population uses emojis. And while there are many to pick from, I don't know if you've noticed, they're fairly stereotypical, right? So this is how boys are portrayed, and this is how the girl emojis are portrayed. And so to bridge this gap and to also inspire young girls, the Google team has introduced several new emojis representing men and women in a wide variety of roles, and also different hair and skin colors to be more inclusive. And this is now becoming an industry-wide standard. It's getting added to the code, and also iOS and Facebook and Twitter and others are starting to embrace these new emojis. Again, a great example of gender-based and ethnicity-based inclusive design. And this, I think, also shows you like some of the changes need not be like big changes. They're just simple changes. And including myself, until you start looking for these opportunities, you use it day in and day out, but you don't even recognize that there's a problem there until someone points it out and how people feel about it. So now I'm kind of, this one is another one. At YouTube a few years ago, we did a Women at YouTube hackathon around the theme of bridging the gender gap, just to see like are there more opportunities for us to do more things on the platform if we were really focused and took a proactive lens on kind of like gender reach on the platform. And how many of you know of Gamergate or harassment of online gamers within online community? Many of you, right? So this was around the time where it was really a big thing, and a group of engineers decided to tackle, as part of the hackathon, improving our YouTube comments and moderation tools to help women combat harassment and feel safer on the platform. And it was as a result of this hackathon, we actually identified a lot of improvements that we could further do to give more control to the creators so that if they are getting comments, they can choose to moderate it and block it and bring things to a level where they feel more comfortable with those comments on the videos. And again, a great example of gender-based inclusive design, which helped us deepen our engagement with our female creators. And also of cases where the grassroots ideas like hackathons can help you drive kind of product innovation. So now I've kind of given you many examples across different industries and some from YouTube and Google of cases where inclusive design happens, sometimes proactively, sometimes accidentally, and sometimes reactively. And the question is, how can you do inclusive design in a more rigorous, scalable way and make it a part of your kind of process for development? So if you look at this is how in Google our typical development phases look like. They're not necessarily this linear because each phase has its own rounds of iteration, but these are the main level of phases. I don't know if you all kind of can relate to this for your product. And most of you in tech startups, I'm assuming, yes? So I'm sure your products are going through this kind of a development cycle too. The question I think first and foremost for you to think about is when you define your target users, what demographics really matter? And can you prioritize and pick one that along with your target user group to define into it? So instead of just saying that my target users are 18 to 34, if you could say 18 to 34 with equal engagement from men and women, for instance, or 18 to 34 with socioeconomically, it should be neutral. Then you have not just your age range, which is what we normally think about of target users, you have this other demographic goal that is important for your product that you want to meet. And then when you're building your product, it's important to make sure you have metrics and logging so that you can actually measure how well you're doing or not doing. And once you have that kind of monitoring in place, when you go to do testing, whether it's a new feature that you're running a live experiment on and doing A/B tests, or whether you're bringing users into your lab to test the product out, you can be more intentional about selecting the right set of users to represent that goal that you set out, or looking at the metric movement. So, for instance, in YouTube, we many times look at, is it watch time positive change, watch time neutral change. In addition, you could also look at that other demographic metric movement and decide whether that feature makes sense or not to roll out, or do you need to go back to the drawing board and optimize further. Now, you might be thinking, a lot of things that we do, at least in Google, have are machine learning and algorithms. And how can machines be biased? And the biases in machine learning come because of the training data that we use and biases that we introduce through the training data. So here's a great video that our Creative Labs team put out to show you different kinds of biases that you should be aware of in machine learning. So here are the video.
Let's play a game. Close your eyes and picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about this? We may not even know why, but each of us is biased toward one shoe over the others. Now imagine that you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a shoe. You may end up exposing it to your own bias. That's how bias happens in machine learning. But first, what is machine learning? Well, it's used in a lot of technology we use today. Machine learning helps us get from place to place, gives us suggestions, translates stuff, even understands what you say to it. How does it work? With traditional programming, people hand code the solution to a problem, step by step. With machine learning, computers learn the solution by finding patterns in data. So it's easy to think there's no human bias in that. But just because something is based on data doesn't automatically make it neutral. Even with good intentions, it's impossible to separate ourselves from our own human biases. So our human biases become part of the technology we create in many different ways. There's interaction bias, like this recent game where people were asked to draw shoes for the computer. Most people drew ones like this. So as more people interacted with the game, the computer didn't even recognize these. Latent bias. For example, if you were training a computer on what a physicist looks like, and you're using pictures of past physicists, your algorithm will end up with a latent bias, skewing towards men. And selection bias. Say you're training a model to recognize faces. Whether you grab images from the internet or your own photo library, are you making sure to select photos that represent everyone? Since some of our most advanced products use machine learning, we've been working to prevent that technology from perpetuating negative human bias. From tackling offensive or clearly misleading information from appearing at the top of your search results page, to adding a feedback tool on the search bar so people can flag hateful or inappropriate autocomplete suggestions. It's a complex issue and there's no magic bullet, but it starts with all of us being aware of it so we can all be part of the conversation, because technology should work for everyone.
Yes.
Do you have a link for this video that you can share?
Sure, it's on YouTube, I believe, so you should be able to get it. Yeah.
I searched
Yeah.
for it, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, you should be able to. I can also check and send it around to the organizers. So the other thing is, once you're done with the product, all of you are going to get to a point where you're going to launch your product. And it's important that your PR, your branding, the marketing videos you create around it are reinforcing whatever demographic goals you set out that you wanted to convey through the product. The other thing also is, I think it's really important to still foster a very inclusive culture. Since you're all starting out, or it's still an early stage, I think it would be great for you to consider this as a core value or core principle within your company. Because the more diverse perspectives you allow to foster within your company, the richer your products are going to end up being. And we recognize that there is a funnel problem in the industry, and there is a diversity problem. We all know it. And Google has been investing through its CS education and media efforts, access to technology education around the world to diverse populations. The team is also doing a lot to raise awareness of unconscious bias. How many of you have heard about unconscious bias trainings that we do? Many. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And also, we've been working, and I helped the team on this with the media, script writers and directors to make sure that, and also the Gina Davis Institute, to look at how our engineers represented in the big screen, because that's a huge influential effect that you can have on just overall change and inspiration. So with that, I kind of want to leave you with, and then we can open it up for questions, and I would love to hear your input. Here is kind of like a simplified cheat sheet, if you will, that you can take back. Right? First is identify your demographic gaps. All of us are resource constrained. In a startup, you're going to be even more resource constrained. So you can't go and solve for all problems. So just like the way you're defining a narrow target user group, make sure as part of that you really identify the demographic gap that if you bridge or solve for is going to drive business impact. And measure, prioritize, and foster a culture and keep iterating and celebrate it when you get your wins. With that, I'm going to open it up for questions. I don't know if you have microphones or you can pass it around.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Try this or no? Sure. Yeah? Okay. Try it. Look. Yeah. Well, fix it.
Hi, thank you for coming today. This was really awesome. I think that Google is doing a lot externally to fix a lot of things and like what you presented. But my question is around your internal culture. So we saw things like the Google Manifesto come out, and that explains a lot about an internal culture. So what is Google and YouTube and all of you guys doing to solve those internal biases and internal problems?
I think, bias busting is a process. And Google actually has been very progressive in terms of unconscious bias trainings, in terms of bias busting trainings. We do this as part of our mover orientation for everyone who joins the company. A large part of all the leadership teams are going through those too. And overall, the company is really trying to make sure that people are aware of it, because a lot of it starts with awareness and also starts with being equipped with being able to call it out in the moment when it happens. And then fostering a culture where you can have ideas like this be able to propagate. So there's a lot that the company does. Of course, different people have different opinions, and some might like it, some might think we need to do more, and we will do more.
Perfect, thank you.
So thank you for this. I thought it was very inspiring. So earlier there was that Google Cloud API for video analytics, and I think that it'd be really wonderful. I don't know if you already have it, maybe you do, to have like a workshop for startup entrepreneurs to be able to, hack together the side of this, which is a lot more, I guess more. It requires like human thinking versus, data analytics, right? And do you guys have anything like that for video?
So I'm trying to understand, what is your question? Like how to detect bias in videos?
No, so I'm thinking that what I would like, because I have a paid agency for diversity individuals, I'm a nonprofit. So what I would like as a startup entrepreneur to be able to go to a workshop and learn what you do, right, for like product building, and also apply it to like utilizing it for video content is what I was thinking.
We do have, like, YouTube has a lot of like creator-facing trainings, both online and also like pop-up workshop style. You should definitely go check it out. If you go to youtube.com/creators.
Does it have anything?
No, I don't think we really started doing that yet, but that's definitely something that we're working towards, is how do we package this material and make it available as training for startups and other workshops. That's what you're asking for. That's definitely in our kind of discussion points. It's not there yet. Yeah, but it's good to know that there's interest. Yes.
An unconscious buyer. There may be something more than what I'm thinking. Unconscious buyer, like I know that brand other than the other, or unconscious buyer, I want that just because I want it and there's no reason why I should spend the money. Is that more to that? It's not just like impromptu thinking.
What do you mean? Like
just buying because it's there, because it's pretty, I like the color, without thinking
that's
consciously.
Yeah.
Is that an unconscious buyer? Is that how you define it, or what is it?
I think that's just an impulsive thing, right, that you're talking about? Are you asking, is that an unconscious bias?
You mentioned unconscious buyer. Have you seen? So I said, well,
that's
interesting. Is that what basically what you're talking about?
No, I'm not talking about a buyer, I'm talking about bias.
Oh, bias. Okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Got it. All right.
Any other questions?
This is a little off topic, but important. That when we talk about inclusivity, that businesses include nature and natural capital and that we design with the footprint in mind. And I think you can't leave that out of the equation, especially going into a world that is very resource restricted with an atmosphere that's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
So
thank you for that.
Just to please include that.
You have a question?
So bias can creep up in many ways. And for example, there are physical objects that exist in certain countries, certain cultures that don't exist in others. You know, inclusion of that would be important. I can share an experience with you that many years ago I came to MIT from India and I went to a job with a company in Chicago area. Probably I was the first foreign person they had ever interviewed. And they gave me a questionnaire, behavioral and all that. They had a picture questionnaire, some 5-10 pages, and I was supposed to identify each picture. And there were certain pictures there, like very old style washing machine that I had never seen, which was used in the United States, a crank. So grandmother might have been familiar with it. And I couldn't identify it. And so the HR head came and said, you did very well on everything else, but you didn't do well on this picture thing. I'm surprised that an MIT person did so poorly. And the thing was that all those items there I had never seen in my life before, and I had to guess. So, you know, taking objects, somebody brought this up, nature and other things, so objects as they exist in other cultures and other countries, and even the way people use the same things in other countries versus in Japan versus US versus India or Africa. So ways of use may also need to be incorporated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Questions or comments? All right.
Thank you so much. All right, I think it's time to announce the winners of our group selfie/picture.
It's okay. Girl group? What is girl group? Yeah. Nice, that's great.
I just they want us moving outside of the top.
I took a picture yesterday and ended. Oh, wow. I would be talking about it.
So let's finish strong and everyone can take a seat. It'll be super helpful.